Hello there, and welcome to my channel. I live in the United States, and on July 4th, we celebrate our Independence Day. I like to have a few decorations that are seasonal in my home. And one way that I've found that I can do this without a lot of extra things to store is by making seasonal pillow covers for the existing pillows that are on my couch. So today I'd like to show you how I made this pillow cover that resembles a United States of America flag. So I've gone through my fabric stash and pulled out red, white, and blue fabric that I thought might work really well for this project. And here is the stack of reds that I've got. And I'm just going through all of this to audition the fabric for this project. I didn't have as much cream color or white fabric to choose from. I am trying to use this project as using what I have. I don't want to go out and buy more fabric because I don't need to. And I feel like this star pattern is just perfect for the upper left-hand corner of the pillow, which will be the stars. But any of these blue fabrics would work for what we're going for. I even have some faux denim here that would work, or you could cut up a pair of old retired jeans if you wanted to for that corner patch. Right now I'm measuring my pillow so that I get an idea of how big this pieced flag will need to be on the front and for the back piece as well. From seam to seam, I came up with 18 inches. And then from the zipper to the seam, I came up with a little less than 18 inches. So I might go with 17 and a half, or I might go with 18. On these, I will need to add another half an inch to an inch for seam allowance as well. Before I cut my pieces or commit too fully, first I want to lay everything out roughly to get an idea of the look that I'm going for or how it's going to look laid out. So I know that I want that star material in the corner there. The blue and white polka dot would also be a good choice. If you don't have blue fabric with white stars on it and can't find any at the shops, then any blue fabric that you have would work out well and look fabulous. I've laid down the white with a red stripe, and then I am also opening this fat quarter and laying that down for another red stripe. And I love this cream colored fat quarter that has a faint pattern of red and blue in it. And I will use that for one of the stripes. And then for the last red stripe, I'm trying to decide between two different fabrics. One is a lighter colored red, and the other is a very deep, almost maroon color. And so I think both of them would work. I just need to decide which one I like the best. I guess that's not really a maroon color. It has a faint black pattern to it instead of the white pattern that the other red piece has. I like the red and white because it plays off of the other red and white pattern stripe that I have there. But I also like this one too. And I could do something like this for the backing, or I have some old jeans that I could cut up to use as the backing material, especially since it's going to be an envelope style pillowcase. Now I am trying to figure out the measurements for all of the pieces that will go into this. I'm sure that there are a few patterns out there, but I am trying to customize this for that measurement of the pillows for my sofa. 8.5 inches by 9.5 inches for the star fabric. 3.5 inches by 10.5 inches for the smaller stripes. And 18.5 inches by 3.5 inches for the longer stripes. I am allowing for 2/4 inch seam allowances on this, which will leave me with a total measurement of 18.5 inches, hopefully. I'm cutting the stars fabric now for the upper left-hand corner of the pillow cover. There were 3 stripes coming off of the blue star piece, and so I wanted to make sure that the dimension or the measurement was easy to divide by 3. I cut the first short red stripe piece into a 10.5 inch length, only to find out that it had a hole in it. So since I didn't have enough fabric to redo it in this fabric, I went ahead and chose a different fabric. So inspect your scraps carefully before you start a project like this. I totally could have made it work, but as I didn't see the hole until after, I had cut on the wrong side. And I didn't have enough length of that fabric to make it work. I need one red piece that's 3.5 inches by 10.5 inches, and 2 cream or white pieces that are that same dimension or measurement. Then I will be cutting 2 red longer pieces for stripes that will be 18.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and one in the same measurement out of the cream or white color fabric. I'm doing 2 pieces out of this fabric, one a shorter stripe and one a longer stripe. Actually, I was wrong. This isn't red and blue, it's red and black. I still like it though. Okay, one will be 10.5 and one will be 18.5 inches long. A worst case scenario, if you don't have something that is long enough, is that you can always sew it, piece it together. Just barely, but close enough. Okay, so this is double. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have 22. You'll do better than me and get your ironing board and iron out and iron these before you start. I think I am gonna have to get that out because I can't tell what the measurements are on this. So don't be lazy like me. Look how much better that looks. This piece did not look even to me, so I measured it and trimmed it. Right now, I'm just laying all of the pieces out again to make sure I have everything. And as you'll see, I forgot to cut one of the pieces, so I'll need to go back and do that. But everything's looking really good. Now to take these to the sewing machine. Here I have the 2 bottom long pieces, right sides facing, And I am just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on those to get started. And this looks fabulous. So now I'm going to put the other long red stripe on the other side of the cream or white piece and sew that up together. Remember to make sure that the right sides are facing each other. I'm not using pins for this part of the sewing, but if you are more comfortable sewing using pins, having things pinned or clipped down, and then removing them as you sew, you can certainly do that. It's coming along and looking so good, and it's going to be a cute little project. I'm excited. So now I am repeating the process with the shorter stripes and sewing them together. Only I have 2 cream or white pieces and 1 red piece. Okay, I'm gonna go iron these. I'll be right back. Okay, so I ironed these so that the seams would go on the dark fabric side so it wouldn't show through on the lighter fabric. Now this came a little bit over, and I could have trimmed that. In fact, maybe I just will. I'll just trim it with the scissors here real quickly. The block of star fabric now goes against the short striped piece, and right sides facing, and then I'll go ahead and sew that up together. There we go. It's looking good. Now to match up and sew the short stripes and stars piece to the long stripes piece. And you can see I did put some pins into this one to hold it steady. And here it is, but we're not done yet. Okay, I was going to be careful not to do this, but I did. I had wanted the more plain white or cream colored stripe to be in the middle. And I got it turned around somehow, as I do. I often do. But you know what? I'm not going to pick it out. Not having it today. So we're just going to have to like it the way it is. Famous last words. I picked it out. It wasn't that big of a project to just unpick to the blue part of the fabric and then unpick the one side of the blue fabric and then turn it right side up. And then re-sew it back together again, which is what I'm doing right now. It would have been fine the way it was, but I like it much better now. It's just a matter of preference. So here we have the finished top, and my husband pointed out that if you wanted to make these into placemats instead of a pillow cover, you could certainly put some batting and a backing on now and then quilt this. You could just do it simply with your sewing machine and stitch in the ditch and then put a binding on it, and they would be so cute. I am using an old pair of jeans for the fabric for the backing of this pillow cover. I unpicked the side seam, and then now I am just going to cut off the cuff, and that will give me a pretty good sized piece of fabric to work with. You wouldn't have to unpick the side seam if you didn't want to. Most of the time I just cut it off, but I wanted to make sure that I had enough fabric for this project, so that's why I unpicked it. You can get jeans from the thrift store if you have a thrift store by you that sells jeans cheaper than fabric at the fabric store. You can use your old jeans that you've worn or your family members have worn. If the fabric is still good, if it still has a lot of life left to it. These particular pair of jeans are women's jeans, and they're made of the stretchy fabric, and so I need to be careful as I sew that I am not stretching it too much or it will pucker. It's a little tough going over those seams, side seams or inseams with a rotary cutter, so you need to exert a lot of pressure when you do that. I am cutting the 2 pieces of backing fabric that I need for this, the same size as the finished pillow top, which is 18.5 inches by 18.5 inches. And I just used the pillow top as my pattern. If you're concerned about the backing material not matching up completely with the pillow top, just remember that some of this will be folded over to make the pocket or envelope pillow part. I am kind of just figuring this out as I go, and so you'll see in a few of the next frames that I end up cutting this down from the 18.5 inch square that I had. I fold the denim 1 inch from the edge, and then I fold that over 2 inches, and then I pressed it so that it would be nice and flat. Here I am showing how I cut off some of the length of the backing pieces, but I will have exact measurements for you in a few seconds. But basically, all you need to do if you're working with different measurements and a different size pillow than I am is to just lay out your backing pieces with the pocket or the envelope part overlapping and lay it out to the dimension of your pillow top and then trim off the excess. I'm arranging these 2 back pieces to be the length of the top piece, our flag piece, and then aligning them up so that they align together. The bottom back piece is 18.5 inches wide and 15 inches long. The top backing piece is 18.5 inches wide by 14 inches. I've overlapped the opening pieces to be 4 inches in measurement. They are 2 inches long or in length each. Those are the folded over parts of the 2 backing pieces. And I'm just very quickly going to sew them down, keeping my stitching very close to the folded edge. Yes, I did white stitching. You are welcome to use matching thread if you'd like. So it's important to note that around this time, I was starting to have trouble with my machine, and so that was adding to my frustration. And I found that when that happens, if I just put it up for a little while and then come back to it, then I can usually figure out what the problem is. And you can see how the top piece here, the part that I sewed, is really has quite a few puckers to it. But in the finished pillow, I don't think that it was that noticeable. And so now I'm just laying both of those pieces right side up to the measurement that will fit the top piece. And I laid the top piece right side down on top of it. And I am just moving things around so that it all matches up and is even. So now that it's all perfectly aligned and even, I am going to pin all of the pieces together so that they are stable and that I can sew them all together. If you wanted to baste the two back pieces together before you pin this, it might be helpful. I didn't do this, and it was just fine without it. But if you want a little bit more stability, just baste those two pieces where they meet before pinning it together and then sewing the top on it. So here I am once again at the sewing machine, and I am going to sew the top and the bottom pieces together. And I am doing a 1/4 inch seam here, but I would just tell you that if I do it again, I would just go ahead and do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. It seemed to fit the pillow just fine, and I'll show you why I ended up going back and doing a 1/2 inch around it. But here I am, the first pass, doing a 1/4 inch seam. If it's your first time sewing something that has corners, when you get to the corner, then you just lift up the presser foot with the needle down into the fabric. Turn or pivot the fabric and then put the presser foot back down and continue sewing. Right now, I'm to the part where I'm going through all those layers of denim. And so I put my hand right next to it to stabilize it a little bit. And if I need to pull or to push a little bit gently, I can, to help the needle and the sewing machine continue to move forward. When I come to these pressed seams, if they are going against the needle, then I just put my finger down to guide them through so that they don't flip back. It's not that big a deal if it does. This is the sewing machine trouble I alluded to it earlier in the video, and I didn't know what was going on, but once I changed bobbins, I didn't have any problems anymore. I think with my sewing machine, if I have a different kind of thread, then I will have problems sewing. But changing bobbin thread seemed to take care of the problem. So I did a little bit of experimenting with this pillow cover, but I think the formula is to measure the width and length of your pillow from seam to seam, and then add 1/2 inch to that measurement. Or you may want to add 1 inch to that measurement. My 1/2 inch seams were pretty scant, so if you take hefty 1/2 inch seams, you may want to do the 1 inch extra. I did 1/4 inch seams on piecing the top, and then when I sewed the top and bottom together, I did a 1/2 inch seam all the way around. And there we go. Let's take it to the table and pull it right side out and see how we did. I'm so excited to see what it looks like all put together. Normally when I do something like this, I clip the corners off, and that's what I was motioning for, but I am going to wait and make sure that everything looks good before I cut the corners off. I'm really holding my breath to see if this is going to fit this pillow. You'll notice that my pillow has rounded corners instead of sharp edges, and I could have done that on the pillow cover, but I didn't. So you may want to adapt yours to rounder edges if that's the pillow you're working with. Has rounded edges. So this is looking great, and it's fitting great so far, and I'm getting ready to set up the camera to do the last picture of this finished project. And you may think that we're done, but really we're not, and I'll show you why. It just wouldn't be a successful project for me without at least 1 or 2 glitches. So not to worry, I just take it back to the machine, and I have put it wrong side out again, and so now I am just going to make a bigger seam line all the way around. At least I did 3 sides. I may not have done the 4th side, but the sides where the envelope connects is where I was having the problem. So I made a 1/2 inch seam at those junctures and on those sides. And the cover in general was just a little baggy and a little bit loose for the pillow. I think with the 1/2 inch seam, it really made a better fit for it. You may need to give a very gentle tug when you're sewing through all those layers of denim. But the machine went right through it. I probably should have used a denim needle for this, but I didn't. I just used a regular sewing needle. And actually, this is a very lightweight denim anyway. Voila! And there you have it, the Patriotic couch pillow cover. If you're in a different country, you could probably do something similar if the flag of the country that you're in is not all that complicated. Here's the view of the back, which I think is really nice looking as well. If you wanted to do some buttonholes and put some wooden buttons or big blue or big red buttons on the back on the denim, that would look really great. It's not perfect, but I'm very happy with the way it turned out. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again for my next project. Goodbye.